they make criticism disappear, and they are not should not stop you from reaching your potential, except there's never yes, and then you get unstoppable.
I think it absolutely matters, but it has not yet mattered to me when I compose. But yeah, it does matter. What I like to do when I compose is, well, there's a few things to think about. One, I don't want to make the same record twice. So how do I make a different sounding record? I have different objectives, and I make an objective out of my method. So I'll basically have a different method, and that method will help me make a different record. Does that make sense? Like, I'll give you an example. And usually it has to be something that I'm going to learn from too. So if I want to learn how to do something new, because I'm trying to find new sounds in general. I'm trying to make a record worthwhile. And to me, it's not really worthwhile unless it's something original, at least if I'm doing it. If I hear somebody else do something that's kind of a knockoff, but it's done well, and maybe I can find something to like in it, that's fine and all. But for myself, I don't want to do that kind of, yeah, it's a good version of a certain kind of thing that's done all the time. It's not. So I want to do something fresh. And what that means is I need to experiment with the methods more than I need to, because, the methods will create a new sound. If it's a truly new sound, then you've never heard it, which makes it pretty hard to hear in your mind before having heard it. Even if we create a new sound, we need to kind of discover it, and the best way to discover it is by not just grasping around the dark, but by trying to kind of create a different method or a different formula that'll create an outcome. And then you can try formulas not knowing what the results will be, and then you're surprised you have a new sound. So for example, it's as simple as, like, I want to write an album where I write all the songs on an acoustic guitar, and then later on I take the songs that I have written and do whatever I want with electric guitars, and it doesn't matter, saxophones or whatever. And you're going to have a different product than if you said, I want to start all my songs, write them with the bass first. You're going to have, and also, if I want to make an album that's bass centric, then it's all going to be focused on the bass. And then I'll write around the parts I've written for the bass or whatever. Usually my stuff is not quite that microscopic. Usually I'm a little, like, I look at a little bigger picture, like trying to changing venues for every track, or maybe I try changing the venue throughout the track, or maybe trying to record many basses, for example, and then switch basses throughout the song, sometimes really subtly, sometimes really, that kind of thing. What's the opposite of subtle? I guess, yeah, you know what I mean. Abruptly. And do the same thing with drums, where many drum sets, and record a single part and then have the drum set change, but not the part. So instead of creating different drum parts, create a drum part and then have different drum sets play it and have the tone change. So you're composing the tones, or sometimes composing the spatial orientation, which is as simple as panning something from left to the right, but it can be taken a lot farther than that. It can have things farther and closer, and you can create like a contrary motion or an oblique motion or a similar motion, and composing with those kind of things. Composing with timbres, where you'll move EQs. You can create counterpoint in EQs, or oblique motion with counterpoint in general, which means contrary or oblique and all that. I've been kind of getting more interested in harmonic or modal modulation and harmony, because in the past I've done a lot with metric modulation and rhythm, and superimposing different meters and modulating from one meter to another, zoning, and then zoning different drum sets. So we could have like a jazz kit over here and a rock kit over here, play 1 in 6/8, play 1 in 4/4. So they're overlapping grooves that kind of they start together and then they fall into their own grooves, and then they come back together again after a certain number of measures, and over and over and over. And different things like that. Lately, I've been become extremely interested in voice leading, and trying to create polyphony. I want to try to compose polyphonically in some of my next stuff. I think I'm going to stay away from drums for a while. I don't know if I'll go back to drums. I don't know when. I've pretty much I've done a lot of drum stuff, so I'm going to try to move on from that a little bit and do more harmonic stuff, but not just harmony. Like I've already done that kind of too, where like you have one chord that goes another. Like my first track on my first album was kind of like harmonically interesting, I think. But I don't want to just do harmonically interesting. I want to try to create polyphony, where you have separate lines, separate ideas, subjects and counter subjects and things that when they overlap, they naturally create harmony. But that they're not written from the purpose of like vertical chords. They'll be written as horizontal melodies, ideas, and that they fit as chords. So it's like they're chords after the fact. Like they're individuals. When you put them together, it happens to be a society, but it's not a society as a primary. Really been listening to a lot of Bach, a lot, because he's kind of the master of polyphony as far as I can tell. But then that's only short term, because my goal is I want to write polytonally, which I've already done some experiments where I found that within the harmonized scale, different chords will have a different relationship, and how I've been kind of working on how to measure the consonance and dissonance between chords when put together, so it's reliable. I can count on it and I can achieve the effect I want every time. And what I want to do is I want to try to create a polyphonic track and a polyphonic track that, when put together, will work together symbiotically as a polytonal track. But that's going to be that's a work in progress. I got to work towards it. Lately, I haven't been working towards my own stuff so much. I've just been working on trying to create a living for myself, and also I've been transcribing Bach tunes, not by ear, but by the scores, where they have all the music instruments, and then I put them into free notation software so that I can set it up for piano, or I can part it out for guitar, bass, and vocals and things like that. I may record some of that too, just because it's really nice and I like it. But